Great. To everybody who's joining us online, welcome to Whiskey Wednesdays. This is an ongoing webinar on Zoom hosted by Uncle Nearest brand stewards from around the world. I like to say country, but Matt is joining us also from London. And each week we visit with a different distillery peer, either a distiller. In this case, we have a founder and master distiller, but sometimes brand ambassadors. No, you don't like master?
No, do not. No. Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you. And we can
fair enough. It sounds
touch base on that. We can touch base on that, but that's no.
Okay,
no.
All right.
Trent, you're not a double black belt in distillation yet.
No. I'm just a dude who makes booze, and that's it.
So we have a very humble, very talented distiller with us this evening. If you don't live in California, you might not be familiar, so I'll have Trent introduce himself a little bit. But Trent is the distiller at San Diego Distillery. I first met him. He was the last event that I hosted at Vestry, the whiskey bar that I used to run before I left to work for Uncle Nearest. And I'm a huge fan of his whiskey. Very interesting mash bills, which we'll talk about, and a lot of influence from the beer world as well. And I think we have some questions that are focused on that. But Trent, I'd love for you to, well, first we should go around the room and say what we're drinking, I think, right? That's what.
And introduce ourselves as well, probably.
Thank you, Sailor. So I'm Matt Carlson. I'm a brand ambassador here in Los Angeles, and I've got Trent's San Diego Distillery single malt here, which is delicious.
Is it cask or is it cask or is it 92? It should be. I hope it's cask.
I think it's 92.
I'll be pissed at you if it's only 92. Wait, did you get the bottle I sent you? Is that the one you got?
No, so I didn't have you send me anything because I was able to buy it because I'm here in Los Angeles. I think this is 92.
Then you got the boring on the shelf product. Boring.
You can send me as much whiskey as you want. I'll send you my address.
Producer Sailor, can we get a curse tally going for Trent, please?
Sure. Yep.
We can't do that.
Yes, you can. I think we should.
No, I swear I didn't say anything bad.
No, but they'll use it for me.
And guys, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves across the country?
I'd love to. My name's Richie. I'm the national brand ambassador for Uncle Nearest. And sadly, Trent, my bottle of your whiskey did not arrive in time. So I'm sipping on some Uncle Nearest 1856. But about 45 minutes ago, I did order, because I wasn't sure if your bottle was going to make it in time. So I did order a bottle from Drizzly, a surprise bottle that I'm going to tell us about, and it should be here in about 10-15 minutes or so.
Wait,
so I will be
mine?
drinking. No, it's not your stuff. No, it's
okay.
something else. Yeah, but until that arrives, I'm going to be drinking this beautiful Uncle Nearest 1856. Until then, stay tuned though.
Well, I'll jump in. I'm Ian in Chicago. I'm the Chicago brand steward, and tonight I am also drinking with my favorite uncle, 1856. I'm hoping to get a bottle of yours coming in the way soon.
So did nobody's bottles arrive?
No, what the? Who's getting fired for this one? I guess
Trent, did you send them by Camelback?
We are in a global pandemic.
I'm not sure how these got out. I'm not sure. But I promise you guys, somebody got beautiful bottles. Somebody got stuck with tomorrow.
So we'll do a follow-up bonus episode where we do tasting notes when the bottles are
out. Cool.
We'll post that.
Hell yeah.
Yep. It's called our after hours, so we'll make sure that
we'll make sure to record it.
Yes.
Somebody got stuck with some cool bottles, and I tried not to send out any garbage. So I hope.
Well, I'll send you my address, and if any of them get returned to you, they can all come to me.
Okay, good. Good. I like that.
Matt, you want to tell us where you're at?
Yeah.
Me?
You.
I'm Matt. Yeah, it's late here. I'm Matt. I'm the UK brand ambassador for Uncle Nearest, and reading all about trends and peating whiskies and everything. I'm actually drinking the Balcones peated single malt.
Ooh.
Nice.
I should have been drinking that too. Well, I also did not.
I'll post you some.
Get a bottle either, unfortunately. But that's okay. We're gonna don't stroke out. We will have a special after hours devoted just to your beautiful whiskey, and we will all do tasting notes, and maybe I'll make a special cocktail. I'm Sailor. I'm here to assist in all of the producing functions, but I'm also the brand ambassador for the Pacific Northwest for Uncle Nearest.
So Trent, I know there's some people that are probably unfamiliar with your whiskey. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the distillery, about the brand, and how you got started in whiskey. But I think since you're at the distillery, if you want to give us a quick look around as well, I think we would all enjoy that.
Yeah, we can do that. Let's do that real quick. So I'm going to go very, very slowly because I don't want people to get very dizzy. So I'm going to slowly walk very creepily like across the distillery. And I'm going to start at the very, very front and try to keep my hand as steady as I can.
You're doing a great job.
I'm very proud of you all that you all are drinking. I'm actually on a dry spell, believe it or not. And I'm not drinking probably for the next year, which is really kind of cool. Wow. So it's kind of fun. So I'm walking into our ante room. We're a small little distillery located here in San Diego. And it's real. And I'm going to switch my camera around right now so you can see outside to this beautiful, beautiful tree in this nice business park that we are located in here.
That's your pride and joy is the tree?
Yes. And my pride and joy is this is our only sign to find us in this business park that we are located in, and we are totally buried and you cannot find us. So I'm kind of proud of that. So
it's like take 50 paces, take a left at the tree. That's how you find
I get calls every day. So this is just our little ante room, and I'm going to take a small little slow step where you're going to walk into our normally, you know, when we don't have little X's on the ground to stay 6 feet apart from the person in front of you. We're going to walk into our beautiful outside courtyard style tasting room that has these nice layers kind of up top. However, we have since shifted to making hand sanitizers. So now you see there's totes in the very background, pallets of bottles over here. All the chairs are stacked up in the background, which is really a little disappointing. You know, you'll see containers over here, X's on the ground so people know where to stand when they come in. So they can come in and they can purchase hand sanitizer, right? Because I'm sure we're going to get to this subject of how to keep your distillery alive during these times. Yeah. I'm going to walk over and I'm going to kind of look at a little bit of our bar over here.
This is where you make your bar.
This is
where Trent makes his mocktails.
This is mocktails. Here's an example of some of our stuff on our bar. Here's some of our labels, some of our kind of stuff that's here.
Wait, is that a clown? Is that a clown face? What is that over there on the end?
I'm going very, very slow.
Oh, it's not a clown. Okay, much better.
This is our beautiful Sancha. It's an agave spirit that we make. Ooh. She's blowing out a gun, which is really cool. You see that little flame.
Oh, I love it.
And Sancha slang for my side piece. Because tequila's my side piece instead of whiskey. So that's where that name came from. So this back bar back here. Yeah, sorry. Is there any questions? Can I answer anything?
No, I was looking at that picture and thinking that would make a great tattoo, buddy.
Oh yeah, great tattoo. I'm thinking about it. I think, and the rice is the other one we got. We make a lot of rice whiskey, and the rice label is just beautiful. Absolutely
that's gorgeous.
Also stunning. And we have a lot of fun with labels, but we'll get back to that. So there's
did you install that bar later, or was that in the building when you got there? Because that back bar is gorgeous.
Oh, the back bar I found on Craigslist for $500. It's a back armoire.
Yes.
The rest of this bar, all the copper, all the work, I actually built this bar from scratch myself, which was kind of cool.
Wow, very cool.
Nice. So here, I'm going to move a little bit. Here's a little distillery dog. She's waking up. She's waking up and saying hi.
Aww.
That's Trima. She's my old little lady. She watches out for me.
Aww.
And now we're going to move back towards our production area. And here's my distiller. This is Devin. He's been sleeping. He's been making hand sanitizer for 12 hours a day for the last couple weeks.
Leave the poor man alone, Trent.
Yeah,
Let
let
him
him
nap.
sleep.
Well,
Louise.
thank you for your hard work. That's amazing.
So here
Thank
we
you.
look straight ahead is just stacks of kegs. This was all a double IPA that was donated by a local brewery, Belching Beaver, and we're turning this into we're going to be turning that into a sanitizer.
Wow.
So thanks again for these breweries that have been donating stuff.
And what was the
And then-
name of the hand sanitizer going to be, Trent?
Well, this brewery's called they're called Belching Beaver is the name of this brewery. So this is just an example of some of our casks that we have here. And I know this was one of the questions. As you'll see here, there's a wide range of casks, 5s, 10s, 15s. There's 30s buried back in there. There's 23-gallon casks buried back in here. There's all kinds of stuff all over the place. We have 53s, 59s, all kinds of things here and there. I'm going to slowly move, not too fast, and get Devin in there again. Boom, boom. Just some stainless tanks that are all filled with sanitizer. There's barrels everywhere. Mash tons, more tanks. Sanitizer, sanitizer, sanitizer. It's a real shame. And here's going to move back towards our still filled with more stuff. We just
And
finished
steaming.
Yeah.
Well, we just finished distilling wine today. So over the last week, we've distilled almost 3,000 gallons of wine that we've turned into sanitizer. So we just finished a run, getting ready to pump it out. So this is our lovely 300-gallon hybrid pot still that we've been using. We've been using this on and off for the last couple of years. We do everything 100% by hand here. We do all single run distillation. And all of our whiskey, which for the whiskey nerds, we always get this question. We do not do double distillation. We do everything single run on grain. We do all of our fermentation also on grain. That's why when you guys get your whiskey, it's always a big, flavorful, it's just a honking whiskey. It's part of our kind of signature flavor profile.
Interesting.
Trent, can I ask, do the hand sanitizers have the scent of whatever you made it from? So is that going to be like a wine-scented hand sanitizer?
They do. So all the wine ones that we have, I'm going to slowly walk back to the distillery and go back to where I was sitting, because that's pretty much everything. Other than that, we just have a forklift, some grain, rice, and, kegs of cider that we're going to turn into cider and that kind of thing. And that's pretty much our facility. It's just a small, quaint little place where we make really fun, experimental style stuff.
Very cool.
It's really kind of cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And it's very dirty. We do not normally operate like this, but we've just been going crazy nonstop. Oh, and then, of course, we have our little music. We have our little gear section over here. We have some guitars, some amps where we hang out and we play.
Yeah.
We play metal. We play metal like crazy. We got to have a couple escapes when we're over here making booze,
Nice.
So, but yes, to answer that question about the sanitizer, since you're still, trying to distill this stuff about between, 190 proof, getting it close to neutral as you can, you're always going to have some variant of that, whatever the base of that grain was or whatever that, whatever it was that's going to come through, the flavor profile is going to come out to make it have that quality about it. And it turns out that sanitizer is amazing. It smells so good. It's like liquid grapes on your hands. It's incredible.
We've got a question actually from a viewer, Trent. They were asking what distilling on grain means exactly.
So that's a really great question, and it's something that I like that we do that differentiates ourselves from a lot of distilleries, I feel. When you look at like a lot of Scottish whiskey and a lot of the other big distilleries, what they do is they use an actual beer style wash where they use a traditional style mash tun, right? Where you put all the grain and you put it into a mash tun, you add the water and you lauter off, where you take a bunch of, clean water and you rinse the grains and you put all that into a fermenter and you ferment all of that liquid clear, right? So there's no grain left. And you put all that clear liquid into a still and you distill it all clear. Well, what we do is we do it with everything in it. So we mash with all the grain, we transfer that to a fermenter, so all the grain is still in there, and then we take all that fermenter with the grain in it and pump all that into the still, so all the grain is still in there during distillation. And the reason why we do that is for all that flavor. Mm-hmm. If you've ever been to a brewery and you've eaten that grain after it's been out of a mash tun, it still has an intense, amazing amount of flavor in it. If you've ever had like a nice Scottish ale or a red ale and eaten that grain, it still tastes amazing. When we're done distilling our peated whiskey, there's no more peat left in that grain when we're done distilling it because it all came out of our still. It's incredible.
Does that create a lot more work for you then? I would imagine you have to clean the still a lot more.
Actually, it doesn't, because what you do is when we're done distilling, the mash is actually extremely viscous. So all we do is we replace that one step and we do the mash tun on the backside of distillation.
Okay.
So after we're done distilling, we just pump that whole mash in, or we pump the whole mash into a mash tun, and then we basically do a lauder by gravity into the drains overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just have an actual door, and then we can grain out in the morning, and the mash is all cooled and everything, and it works great.
Nice.
So,
That's like the difference between like a wort and a mash, and then distilling with the grains in the mash as well, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's almost the exact same thing. It's just
like the old school word for wort. That's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same thing.
So, Trent, can you do anything with the spent slop that comes out of the hybrid after, if you're distilling it like that, or does it just end up being trashed?
So my farmer only wants the grain that comes out. However, I do know there's some distilleries that actually, they pump the entire mash with the grain. The other places that do it on grain like we do, they pump it into a tote and they dump the entire thing to their pigs. They eat the liquid grain and everything, and the entire thing goes back out.
That's a pig party. Wow. Yeah.
Richie,
those pigs getting the good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Trent, I know other people have questions, so I want to pass it off to some other folks soon.
Let's do it.
I did want to ask first about how all this has affected your business, and where we've got a question from another guest asking where, I think you're distributed currently in California, but if you could let people know where they can buy your whiskey, and then also talk to us about the hand sanitizer and if people can purchase that.
Okay, so as of right now, we are currently distributed in California and Nevada. We are also, however, shipping currently online. You can go to stdistillery.com/ I believe it's just online, or you can go to stdistillery.com and click on online, and it's there. We're shipping anywhere right now due to all the COVID stuff.
And is that just in California, Trent, or
no?
We're online sales?
We're shipping anywhere right now.
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah, and that is going to be for a limited time. That's going to be for a limited time right now.
Well, now's your chance. If you don't live in California and you want to try this delicious whiskey.
Yes. Now is your time.
Yeah.
I just posted the link for folks to follow.
Oh, cool. Thank you much. So let me see here. What was the next question? The next question.
Sure, the sanitizer. Can people buy that online too at your website, or is it just for San Diego? And who are you sending it to?
So sanitizer right now is insane. So as of when all the COVID stuff started to hit, right, all these laws went into place. Everybody had to basically shut down. We were allowed to go to do to-go bottles only. Not many people wanted to go into a craft distillery they never heard of, step away from their Buffalo Trace for $20, and then try to buy another bottle from a craft distillery they never heard of that was double the price for half the size.
That's because they couldn't find the place, Trent.
Well,
they couldn't find the tree.
They couldn't find the tree, buddy.
They didn't want to find the tree in the first place. So tastings for us were actually huge. When we had the tasting room, we did do great. We had good customers. We did well. But that unfortunately does kill a lot of business, not being able to do just flat out tastings. I mean, we have 14 expressions on our bar that you can try anytime when we are open. 14's a lot for a craft distillery. If you can't taste them, people don't want to buy, and they don't want to try our beautiful Amaro. So, that's a hard sell in the first place for a lot of people. So what we started to do was we just lost a lot of sales, unfortunately. And then we started to realize the hand sanitizer movement picked up a lot of steam. There were a lot of calls, a lot of emails, started flying, a lot of things on Facebook. Everybody saw. I think it started, kind of Pacific Northwest, and people started making hand sanitizer. and it just went totally insane. Most people don't know this, but it's gotten out there a little bit. I'm actually a registered nurse as my day job. I still work full time. I worked a complete shift today. I started at 3 a.m. today. I worked till about 12:30, came to the distillery, started working. So it's been a long day. I work at a hospital. I'm actually a frontline nurse. I'm on the COVID team at the hospital. So it was very important to me once we started to realize we could do this for me to start making hand sanitizer.
Yeah. So
the amount of emails and calls, my wife, while I'm on this right now, is texting me saying, order 5 gallons, nursing home, this and that, all these things. I should probably getting back to her right now, and I'm gonna have hell to pay that I'm not getting back to her right now about sanitizer.
We
orders.
apologize, Maria. We apologize. Letting us
We'll
borrow
make it
him
up
for a
to you
minute.
somehow.
So we're actively playing triage with sanitizer orders, trying to prioritize first responders and that kind of things, and trying to get places that we can donate to with hospitals, nursing homes, and that kind of things, who have seen the worst of the outbreak, trying to get to them, trying to donate things, trying to stuff we can get to, and then trying to get other things that we can get to sell, to try to then get more ingredients, to try to then donate and that kind of stuff. So it's just been a whirlwind of trying to get stuff out there, trying to get employees paid, but then trying to get stuff out there too. So we're trying to cover the gamut of keeping lights on, but getting stuff out there to people who need it as well. So it's just been a fine balancing act. And, rent ain't going to go away in the middle of all this either, So that's what makes all of this really tough. But we're trying. We're doing what we can to give back to our community as much as we can.
That kind of leads perfectly into your question, Ian, I think, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I had heard you were a registered nurse, and I know how demanding that job can be. And I'm curious how you balance a dual career and we'll kind of say in the best of times. Right now it's a totally different landscape, but prior to the pandemic, how did you balance running a distillery and also working as a nurse?
It's tough, man. First of all, you don't sleep. Second of all, you need to have really good friends like Devin, who, comes in and helps out and, is always willing to learn how to distill and learn how to do things the right way, and is willing to learn and has a good palate that, once he learns how to do things and learns how to run the still, can come in and do things. And I can trust him to basically take care of stuff while I'm out trying to work and be a nurse. And then we can make awesome whiskey on the side. But it's tough. It's hard running the business, doing all the day-to-day operations, and then trying to do that at the same time. It can be brutal at times.
And it sounds like your wife is a big part of this too.
She's awesome. She also distills at the same time.
Okay.
I think it's all men here, right? Sans Sailor, right? So
we usually have Chastity with us as well.
Okay.
Unfortunately, she couldn't be here.
I was going to say women have far superior palates to
It's true.
To
Yeah,
us.
I'll say that.
So whenever I really need something super tasted, I always bring in Maria saying, hey, is this ready? Is this barrel good? Is this a pick? My wife actually, she runs the San Diego chapter of Women Who Whiskey.
Of course.
And they're getting ready to do a couple barrel. Well, they were getting ready to fly back to Kentucky to do some barrel picks with Old Forester, and I think they were going to do a Four Roses pick back there too while they were back there. So I don't remember offhand, but the team was going to go back there and do that, and I'm like, I trust y'all for that pick. It's going to be awesome, So. So we have a good team here, just trying to make some whiskey and take care of people.
Just to tag onto that really quick, because I'm so sorry, I'm just so fascinated by this. Are you looking at maybe transitioning into running the distillery full time? Is that what your goal with the brand and the whiskey is?
I have no idea. I'm one of those people that I live life day by day.
Okay.
My wife's
Great.
a planner, and she hates that I'm not. And I just
that would freak me out.
I am
Sailor, do you have some thoughts?
I'm having heart palpitations.
I am an in the moment kind of guy, and that's just how I roll. And it don't faze me. I gotta get up at 3 a.m. again tomorrow to do it all over again, and that's just how it's gonna go.
Trent, does that mean that at any moment you could just pop up and leave this interview, Just on
Maybe.
a whim. You don't know.
Done.
You don't know what
Maybe,
you're
maybe
going to do at
not.
any moment.
Maybe
Can you at least
no.
Can you at least plan the next 30 minutes, please?
Oh, no, we're good. We're good. I'm here. We're good. We're good. What else we got?
So who else had a
Is it-
question
am I-
for Trent?
Yeah, I think Ian, you had another question.
Oh,
yeah,
I
about-
had some other questions. I wanted to
Okay.
make sure I wasn't stepping on toes. You use a lot of really cool product to make your whiskey. You have a lot of beer influence in your whiskey. So, what are your flavor goals when you're using more beer-centric ingredients and things like that? Like, where did that come from?
My flavor goals, I don't have any. My flavor goal is to do ridiculous things and to see what happens.
Okay.
And to be quite honest, I have pulled rabbits out of hats to see what I can try to come up with. And there's a lot of distillers in town. You know, I think we've got maybe 20 distilleries here in San Diego, and so many of them have turned down stuff from other wineries or meaderies or cideries that I have jumped on to taking the advantage to work of. And one of them I'll never forget was like 900 gallons of an elderberry infused sour brown ale that sat in a foeder for like almost 2 years. And it was just this disgusting, rotting, nasty mess. And what I did is I decided to take it and I put it in a bunch of totes and I distilled one of it, like 300 gallons of it, and it was really beautiful. It was really nice. So I decided to take the other half and mess it up like even worse. So I had a tote of grain that was sitting outside that was meant to go to the farmer, but it had been sitting outside for like a week, so it was rotting and it was really gross. So I decided to take that liquid and dump it back on that grain and let it continue to sit for like another week and a half or 2 weeks. And then I took all of that grain and dumped that back in the still and then redistilled it. And it was beautiful. And a lot of these tricks, the reason why I did that was actually because I read a lot about how the Jamaicans like to distill their rum when we want to talk about dunder and that kind of thing. Because I'm a huge fan of Jamaican style rum. So I've actually worked a lot to make like barley style dunder pits and agave style dunder pits for a lot of our distillation. I'm actually working on a 300 gallon agave dunder pit right now, which is really funky and really nasty, and it's going to turn out awesome.
That's cool.
Just for our viewers, Trent, can you walk through the grains and what you're using for your core line? Because even those that aren't so experimental are still probably experimental for some of the palates that are just used to having, say, Buffalo Trace, right?
Okay, yeah. So I'll start like with just our very core, like to me, our very run-of-our-mill bourbon is ultra boring. It's only
That's not true. That's totally not true.
It's only 51% corn. The last batch we did, I sourced beautiful blue corn from Pilot Malting House out of Michigan, which is a craft malting house. Where I text the owner on Facebook, and he's like, "Yeah, I know Fred down the street. He hand makes all this malt. His kids, we play on the baseball team together. Like they're super cool." And then the malt that's in that is actually like the next farmer over. That's John, and he makes this beautiful barley that then Eric custom roast to a Vienna style malt. So we use 49% of a Vienna malt because Vienna lagers are actually my favorite style of beer. So I wanted to pattern our bourbon to be somewhat more on the malty side. Anybody who knows me, I'm actually much more of a malt guy than I am a bourbon guy. So I wanted kind of the maltiest, breadiest, toasty style of bourbon that I could make. So 51% corn, 49% Vienna malt. If I can't get my hands on that beautiful Michigan Vienna malt, I actually usually bring in Weirmann, the German style Vienna malt. It's also stellar. It's really beautiful. So that's really nice, really kind of a fun bourbon. And, you know, in comparison to the Kentucky stuff, is it better or it's worse? It's just totally insanely way different. That's our run of the mill boring bourbon. That's how we make our bourbon.
I would hardly call that boring.
Yeah.
Just for the record, I want to go on the record saying.
So we'll move along to our rye, which is 75% malted rye. It is 15% dark chocolate crystal, like brewer style rye. So if we want to talk in like beer terms, it's SRM 135. So it's a really, really dark style rye. And then we use 10%, of course, peat smoked malt because I'm such a peat guy. So it's actually a peat smoked. It's a peat smoked rye. As far as I knew, we were the first distillery in the U.S. to do a peat smoked rye. We've been doing it for years, since we started pretty much. I knew Kings County did one. They said they were the first, and I remember I released my first batch like 2 years before they did one. And no fault of Colin, I love those guys. I think they're great, but
I think
we were
you
just
started with a bourbon, a peated bourbon. I think you were the first rye, as far as I know. I know Colin too, and I like him a lot. He was on last week, actually.
Well, they did say they were the first one to do a peated rye, and I'm like, come on, man, no. I know. I know.
Battle of the peated rye.
Yeah. I know we're very small and we're very tiny, but we did this a very long time ago too. So whatever, no harm, no foul. My favorite thing is everybody who always said they were the first distillery since Prohibition in like their grandma's town or whatever it was. I mean, everybody's got their little claim to fame. I think it's great. And then our single malt, my single malt's my favorite one. The single malt is based upon a Russian Imperial Stout. So it actually uses 7 different types of malt. And I love explaining to people what a single malt is. So it uses 7 different types of malted barley, right? Hence being a single malt malted barley. So we use 2-row Vienna, black, roasted, special B, chocolate, and brown malts. There's our 7 malts. So it is an intense, roasty, chocolatey, coffee-y. It's a brutal insanity. It's
delicious.
I was gonna cuss, but I'm trying to not cuss because I don't want to ring up the tip jar.
Oh, let her rip.
Yeah, you're doing pretty good so far.
I was gonna say it's a shit show of a drinker, really.
There we go.
It's a big oily mouthfeel of a whiskey, and people either love it or they hate it, and it's one of my favorites. The latest batch has been aging in an Amontillado sherry cask for I think like 3 years or something like that, and it's a mess. I think somebody's getting one of those bottles.
Ooh.
I sent out a lot of cool stuff to you guys. Somebody's getting rice, somebody's getting single malt, somebody's getting Amaro, somebody's getting one of those bourbons, somebody's getting a rye.
Whoever gets the Amaro has to trade with me.
No, I want
not if it's me.
Yeah.
I think somebody's getting our peated, which the peated's boring. Like I said, all we do is we just
It's
support
not
the
boring. It's so good.
Trent doesn't. You don't do sales as well, do you?
I know, right? I hope you're not director of sales and marketing.
Marina's gonna have to jump in here.
No. I say boring, but I joke just because I kind of find it fun just because I don't know. I really like whiskey. I guess I'm one of those guys that I like what we do, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a master distiller. I'm just a guy who makes booze, and I like what we do, and I like sharing what we do. But do I think like this is people like you, like Matt, what you were saying, like, yeah, you make all this crazy stuff. No, I'm just this guy who likes to put stuff together and make things. That's just what I like to do.
Very good.
You know what I mean? But this is what I do. I think somebody got a quaff bottle, and this one's really cool. And I will state that this was really fun. So quaff is like one of the largest and most awarded homebrew clubs in the United States. They've been around for 30 plus years. I think they have like 1,000 plus members. And they have this awarded recipe that's like won more awards than anything else they've ever made, blah, blah, blah. It's a Belgian strong ale. Well, what they did is they had like 40 plus members all brew anywhere between 5 and 10 gallons at home. And we did it sans hops, which will be very important. I'll get to that. So they all brewed a batch. They all brought it here. So I had stacks of buckets. I mean, I had hundreds of buckets here, which was ridiculous. So they all brought it. We dumped it in the still. We had an all fun day, and we drank probably a little bit too much beer. Surprise. And we distilled it, and we put it into some barrels, and we let it sit for like almost 2 years, and we released it for their 30th anniversary of quaff. And it turned out absolutely insane. And the reason why we did it sans hops is so we can call it an actual whiskey, right? Because then it was all grain. As soon as you add hops, it's a spirit distilled from grain and hops as per federal regulation. So kind of cool. I think somebody's getting one of those. I think I sent one of those out.
Nice.
Sounds very interesting.
Please be me. Please be me. Please be me.
Yeah, exactly.
Gee, while we're geeking out about the details, I feel like you had a question about barrels. Do you want to jump in?
Was that me, Matt?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Was that me?
Trent, I love like the aging part of the whole process is like really intriguing to me, you know, because it's so much up to nature, and there's a lot of just mystery to it still, you know. So it's kind of like the more romantic, beautiful part of it. So I just have an affinity with the aging process. And I saw you guys just use a ton of different types of barrels, use all different sizes. And so how many different combinations of barrel sizes and types do you use in your aging process? Have you had some really successful experiments, some really crappy, not to me up for one, crappy experiments as well? Like, how's that been?
I'm one of those people where I've never run across a whiskey I didn't like. Is that a good answer?
But many that were boring.
But yeah, you were bored.
You've never had one you didn't like? I'm going to email you a list privately.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I got like 5 off the top of my head that literally made me want to retch.
See, I don't know. I'm not like that. I like whiskey. So I don't necessarily like dislike things. I mean, I'd rather have whiskey sometimes than like a cup of water or something, you know? So I'm not gonna spit anything out, but so I haven't really had a barrel here that I haven't not liked, to answer that question. However, I will say I've used 5-gallon barrels, 7.5-gallon barrels, 10-gallon barrels, 12-gallon barrels, 15-gallon barrels, 18s, 23s, 30s, 53s, and 59s. And I've used them all 1, 2, and 3, and 4 times, depending on sizes. And yes, I will stave. Yes, I will multi-stave. Yes, I will honeycomb. Yes, I will disassemble them. I will rechar barrels and reassemble barrels. Yes, I will also then re-season barrels. I will do everything to barrels that whatever I feel sounds kind of fun to them.
So you're also a Cooper as well as a distiller.
I'll do anything I want. It doesn't matter to me.
Distiller, Cooper.
It's a renaissance.
But not sales guy. Not sales.
Definitely not sales.
I sell with my energy. I sell energy. That's all it is.
That's for sure. That and spades.
So one of the more fun experiments, and so like it's so not even just in barrels, but I'll also state about who we work with and who we trade barrels with. So like right now, I have a distilled boysenberry sour blonde ale aging in a barrel that used to hold, and the only reason I'm looking off the side is I'm looking at the barrel, that used to hold a maple syrup Russian Imperial Stout from McKellar.
Whoa.
You guys know McKellar Brewing.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's going to be ridiculously crazy. And then like next to that is a distilled tamarindo lager that was brewed in Mexico that's aging in a that's boring. That's just an ex-bourbon barrel. But then like over to the left, I have like an ex-date mead barrel from somebody. And like behind me is like a whole bunch of crazy like bourbon barrels. And there's like cider barrels up here. And there's just like a whole bunch of goofy stuff sitting around. And it's just experiments and good times. But I will say, French oak to me is still probably my favorite due to the tannins. I love stuff in French oak. So good. It's so good.
Do you have a bunch of French oak barrels right now?
I have 2. They're too expensive. I can't afford it.
Yeah. Do you use any other kind of European wood or just French?
I have a barrel that is currently staved with Hungarian oak. I have a barrel that's currently staved with Mizunara.
Ooh.
I have a barrel that has it's a 30-gallon barrel that has long staves and it has French oak heads on it, so that's kind of fun.
That's really cool.
How'd you get that Mizunara? How many do you know how many times it's been used, or
it was new Mizunara. I have a friend that I think he illegally imported it.
Table.
We'll bleep that out too. That's okay.
Yeah. What's your friend's name?
Let's keep it.
Home address?
Well, There was that guy up on Bainbridge Island, right, who makes the Mizunara.
Yep.
He may or may have not had a lead about maybe where to try to find some stuff.
Yeah, he's up by
sometimes.
me. I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
Yes, he is. I'm a big fan of Westland, so every time I'm in Seattle, I always try to get up that way.
Those guys, they're amazing.
Trent, have you ever experimented with breaking a couple barrels down, like maybe a couple of your favorites, like a French oak and a Mizunara, and reconstructing it with alternate staves? So having a French Mizunara.
I'm not that good. I'm not that good.
I thought you were a Cooper as well.
Yeah.
I didn't say a Cooper, but I said I'm good enough to pull a head off a barrel and re-toast or re-season a barrel.
I think I just came up with your next project, buddy.
I don't have time for that. I'm making sanitizer.
Now he's making sanitizer. First sanitizer, then Master Cooper.
No, not a Master Cooper, just a Cooper. If I ever get there.
Yeah, it's just a yellow belt. He's starting out. Well, that was all my questions. Yeah, you covered it all. I appreciate it, buddy.
Cool. Thank you for the question. It was awesome.
Matt, you want to step in and ask?
Yeah, definitely. I read in some of the stuff online that you were actually making a stout-based cocktail bitters. Like years and years ago it was, and I wondered if you ever finished them.
Where the hell did you read that?
Deep cuts here,
God,
guys.
it was on some interview. It was like
we do our research here. This is like
this is top-notch journalism here.
So the only
us and Mark Maron.
The only thing
we got a copy of your diary over here.
We have an insider there. His name is Xander Brown.
The only thing I really wanted to do at some point, which maybe I have no idea where we got that from, but I actually wanted to make bitters based upon the drink, the penicillin. So I wanted to make peated bitters that then had lemon and ginger in them with a touch of gentian root in them, which I thought would be really fun to do on like something.
Nice.
I don't know.
That sort of leads me into the next question I had. Like, if you had an infinite budget, like, what would you run and try out?
What do you mean, like try out, like to drink something, or?
Well, no, say making a whiskey, or if cost was no object, what would you run out and buy to experiment with your whiskey? Would it be more Mizunara wood? Would it be a certain type of beer? Would it be?
Honestly, I would move to Jalisco and make tequila.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Because tequila is not boring.
No.
No, well, but the problem with tequila to me is actually there is not enough inventiveness going on, I think, in that industry. I want to see somebody doing kind of like what we're doing in that realm. I want to see somebody doing PX finished cast strength friggin' agave spirits. I'd love to see some like Fino style finished agave. I think that'd be amazing. I don't think there's enough of that happening. I mean, Sotul or Mezcal, any of that stuff. And some of it's kind of starting to filter up from some of the artisanal stuff, but not enough of it's coming up here. I love the spirits from down there. I think they're amazing.
It's strange. We've just had a couple of scotches released into the UK market that were finished in tequila barrels.
Yep.
So, like,
where'd he go?
The other way around. He hides every now and again.
Oh, there he goes. You're back.
Oh,
Welcome.
Richie, did you get your delivery?
No, that's what I was just looking at. I got a text message. I was seeing if it was drizzling. And it wasn't. No.
I'm a big fan of finishing things in tequila barrels, and I have a couple of we're just talking about barrels. I reuse a lot of my barrels, like we were talking about. So in all the cider and all the beer and all that stuff that I've made, I refinish things. So like in all the agave that I've made, I do have like some single malt sitting in the agave. I've got cider sitting in that. I've got some distilled mead sitting in some of that. So I have all these different things sitting in all these different barrels, and I just switch things around like this, and it's all a big mess. And half the time I don't even know where things are sitting. So it's going to be awesome.
I have one more question. I'm sorry, I got to ask. So when you use all those different size barrels, obviously you're a really experimental guy, but are you ever putting the same distillate in different size barrels? And why and if so, why are you doing that?
Usually no, because we don't make enough of the distillate to put in anything. we only have a 300-gallon still, so generally like the max kind of quantity I'm getting out of anything is only going to be 30 or 40 gallons at a time.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean 2 runs for me is about fills of 53. So I don't like filling 53s. To me, they're too big. I've got to sit on them for too long. To me, I don't have that patience. As you can kind of tell, I'm a little ADD on that. Sitting on a barrel for like 2 or 3 years to me is boring. Let's move on. Let's go to 5s, 10s, 15s. Let's turn around something really crazy in a year and a half, 2 years.
Cool.
I do distill really tails heavy. Which in our method of also the way we distill, since I do use a column, I fluctuate how I run into tails. So I'm always kind of pumping our proof up back on the tails. So I'm always kind of cleaning them back up, which always kind of changes the way those distill. So because of that, I can kind of get into all these different flavor profiles that actually age really well and age quicker. So it works out really well with the way we do our flavor profile. It's kind of hard to describe, I think, without having to do like a live tasting, which kind of would have been really cool. But it works out really well for our stuff. Yeah. And kind of younger aging qualities. Our spirits generally I feel taste about double what our age is. I'm not going to say we make the most amazing 6-month-old distillate that tastes like 10 years old. No, I'm not saying that, but it generally doesn't taste like a very young distillate for what it generally is.
Well, I have worked with small barrels, and I have worked with unique grains and unique recipes, and I think that size of barrel and youth can really benefit those things. It lets those things out, and the barrel doesn't mask it. You can really get all those flavors. So I'm excited. I'm really stoked to try your whiskey.
It really depends
too.
to me. It really depends, I think, on how people distill. I actually think that a lot of the small barrel people that use small barrels actually don't use them well. And I think
also agreed.
And there's been a very poor usage of a lot of barrels that I unfortunately think a lot of people are scared that they distill too clean, which they actually take too small of a cut. And that's why when you put too small of a cut in those little barrels, they just soak in so much wood. And you don't have all that different little esters and all that kind of stuff that are then soaking into all that and pulling all these different other flavors and melding all that stuff together. And so I think these big honking cuts that we do actually work really well. And I try to tell that to people, and they think I'm nuts, but I think our stuff speaks for itself.
We have another question from our guests. They want to know if the size of your bottles is indicative because of the size of your still.
We specifically chose 375s actually for a sales reason. So here goes my sales marketing and my best pitch, and I'll promise to be good with this one. Honestly, because I think we make such fun stuff and our stuff is so unique that I don't want you to get suckered into just buying one bottle. I want you to buy multiple, because we do make such a wide variety of unique, good tasting spirits that I'd rather you take $100, or whatever it is, and buy, multiple bottles than just get suckered up into one like $750 that maybe you're not going to like. At least spread that love across 2 or 3 bottles and find something that you're really going to dig on. That's why we do 370. That's why we do 375s.
Can you tell us,
such an
Trent,
expensive line?
is your core range most readily available? The experimental stuff you're talking about, the sort of the one-off brewery collaborations, are those just available at the distillery?
As of right now, normally that stuff is only available at the distillery.
Mm-hmm.
As of online, that stuff just happens to be available right now for a very, very short time. I will maybe let it slip that there is a bottle online right now that usually is 100% distillery only. The label even says distillery only release. It's called Undisclosed. It comes from a very famous German brewery here in town, which there's not many of if we talk in one of the oldest ones. I think it was started in 1989, and it's from their very famous red ale that's named after a trolley car.
I think I'm familiar.
And it's aged almost 3 years, and it's a blend of used oak and new oak, and it's absolutely stellar. And it was a custom blend we did for our 4-year anniversary. I think there's only a few bottles of it left. I'm looking at it right now, and it's really stellar, and that's going to be like gone soon. So that's sitting there out there online.
There's an exclusive for you guys.
Yeah, that's gonna be gone soon. Like the rice is on there. The rice is not go to distribution normally. The cloth's on there. That does not go to distribution. The peated normally doesn't. And the cast strength stuff normally sees a little bit of distribution, mostly in California. The bourbon, I think, is totally sold out online. The cast strength and the 92 proof, and honestly, it's just because I ran out of labels. I have plenty of it, but I'm out of labels. You know, hey, that's quarantine life, and that's sanitizer life right now. Money's going to sanitizer, trying to get labels made for that. Yeah, and that's about it. Yeah.
Nice. Do we have any
awesome.
other questions from those of you following online or from the panel?
I got a quick question. What about barrel agitation, sonic aging? Have you ever experimented with that?
I mean, you are playing death metal, so maybe that
okay,
helps.
all right. If you were going to say no, I was going to correct your answer and say, because I saw that big speaker and guitar in there, so I know you're doing some kind of sonic aging, even if you don't mean to.
So I actually do have a very large musical subwoofer in here that I'd actually keep next to the big 59s, the big wine barrels that's in here, that we do play a lot of music. So that happens naturally. Do I believe that actually does anything? No, probably not. However, there was a local firm here in San Diego that was trying to develop this thing called Hertz beer. That was actually a very small electronic device that was almost like the size of this, that you would drop into the bung, and there was another plate that would be connected almost like to the outside of the barrel that would then actually cause this to go wah inside the barrel. That would cause a physical agitation inside the barrel. They were fairly like cost prohibitive, but they gave everybody, like all the distillers here in town, like one or two of these things to play with. But it was just weird, like all the time, like always going on. And then
so it was annoying.
Well, the issue they had is that, you know, a lot of these barrels, when they come from these coopers, they still have tons of char on the bottom of these things. So they couldn't figure out a way to keep the thing. So they'd always end up down at the bottom, and then the char would get in the way, and then it could never stay over the little connector, and it would always like move this way, and then it would not end up not working. So they could like never really figure out like a real solution.
Trent, could you imagine a 50,000 barrel warehouse with every barrel having one of those things on it?
Gosh.
It would sound like a plague of cicadas coming in.
The whole town would just kind of.
So what we do
imagine
have,
Jim Beam just sort of.
we do have an American whiskey that is supposedly there's a very secret method being used to age those barrels with sound. And then there is someone local to you, Richie, that also plays music to their barrels, although they're not whiskey per se.
Doesn't Blacken do it?
Yeah, so they have a playlist, and every bottle, well, I guess it's the batch, has a different playlist, and so they'll say whose playlist it was and what it was. But apparently it was something that sound engineers worked together with Dave Pickerel before he passed, and really they claim it's a true science, and it's very heavily guarded.
I think Hudson in New York did that a little bit too.
Hudson said they did too.
Yeah.
What's really kind of fun and gimmicky and interactive about the distillery here in Louisville? It's called Copper and Kings. It's brandy distillery, but they installed speakers and subwoofers underneath all of their barrel warehouse. So it comes up from underneath and vibrates the barrels. But what they play through the speakers is their Spotify playlist. So you can go on their Spotify playlist and add a song and play it to the barrels.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
Richie, you're in Louisville?
I am, yeah.
Oh man, when we were at Copper and Kings, I was just there like over the summer. We had such a great time there.
I love that. I love those guys.
It was so phenomenal. It was so great. It was amazing.
Yeah, great people down there. My buddy Joe Heron, I know he's not watching, but if he was,
you're
doing a great job.
Hey, what's that fried chicken place? That's right. It was called like Itchy's or what was the name of that place that we went to? I don't even know. Whatever. I spent so much money at a fried chicken place that was right there outside of town. That was one of my fondest memories of Louisville. That and the hot brown.
He remembers the chicken.
Wow.
That's the
Welcome
takeaway.
to Whiskey Town.
I know. Come for the chicken.
Or, yeah,
Stay
come
for the
chicken,
whiskey.
I guess. Yeah.
Or stay
Oh
for, or come for the whiskey, stay for the chicken.
They go well
God.
together. They do.
They
It was
Did you
really
just
do.
go to KFC? I mean,
Oh no, no.
It was called like Itchies or like Daddies or like something like that. It was outside of town.
Daddy.
I'm telling you. It was
Itchy Daddy. It was
amazing.
Itchy Daddy.
Itchy daddies.
Daddy.
I was at like this Irish bar and it was like down the street, but it was like by my hotel, and I spent like $100 buying like 2 family packs at this place. It was out of hand.
Wow.
Well, on that note, I feel like we should wrap
There
up.
is an Itchy's Fried Kitchen.
Oh, that's probably it. So I wanna tease our episode for next week. We'll be joined by Tracy Franklin from Glenfiddich. So we're going from a boutique brand to a global colossus. There's Richie, you got a bottle of Glenfiddich 14 there?
I do. It's ready.
We also try to close every episode with a whiskey fact. So I'm sure if you're tuning in, you may know this already. But bourbon is a geographic specific denomination, but it is just like champagne has to be from France, but it doesn't have to be just from Kentucky, as a lot of people think. Bourbon can be made anywhere in the United States, but only in the United States. But it also happens to be made in San Diego with a fair amount of Vienna malt. Trent thinks it's boring. I think it's delicious.
No, it's actually really tasty. It's actually really tasty.
So I don't have a bottle of that currently. I've got a bottle of Trent single malt. I'd be remiss if I didn't say visit Drizzly, Minibar, any of your online retailers to find a bottle of Uncle Nearest. But apparently right now is also the time to buy some San Diego Distillery on their website. So head to sddistillery.com. We had Colin Spolman on last week, and I thought he spoke really eloquently of this. Now's the time to support businesses that you want to see survive.
Yes.
The bigger guys are going to make it. Jack is going to be just fine. Jim Beam's going to be just fine. But go out and buy a bottle of Uncle Nearest and buy a bottle of San Diego Distillery.
Fireball is going to be around forever.
Oh, God.
Hope not. Well, also as a closing toast, if I may, I would like to raise a glass to you, Trent, and to all the other frontline workers in whatever capacity right now. So thank you not only for being a nurse in that position, but thank you also for leaving that shift, coming back to your distillery and making sanitizer that is a protective barrier and very necessary for the people like you out there on the front line. So we thank you and cheers to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers.
This was
And
awesome.
Trent,
Thank you, everybody.
go get some rest, buddy.
Yeah, go to sleep.
Take a nap.
It's 3 o'clock.
I still got to
Go get
finish
some
up
rest.
here.